Welcome. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to this talk, Alok.
Let me
I'm
still
happy to be
introduce you.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So welcome everyone on behalf of Flying Stories. The initiative was to bring in some speakers around the world and introduce their ideas to the local community. Our today's guest is Christoph Faber and Inigo Redin. There are two guests today, surprise from Inigo as well. Let me tell a few things about Christoph first. Christoph is a student of physics. His father was an airplane pilot. He grew up in the airfield. He got introduced to paragliding while he was living with a guy while studying physics. And the idea of having an aeroplane in the backpack, that's what inspired him. And since then, he has been hooked up to flying and hiking. He owns a factory called Turnpoint, which sells paragliders to local schools and dealers. Nowadays, he's only dealing with Woody Valley harnesses. His journey from pilot to race director is more of a journey of being right place at the right moment. His friend was working for the X-Alps organization, and he was asked to help with the airspaces. In the process, he met Hannes Arch, and both of them clicked. The philosophy clicked, and some point in time, he started becoming the race director. So please help me in welcoming Christoph Faber. Today, we also have Inigo Redin, who is the race director for X-Pyr 2016. He is the main guy behind arranging this session. Honestly, it was my attempt to bring Inigo first, but because he thought initially that his English is not good enough, so he reluctantly put Christoph forward to take the bullet first, and quite secretly joined from behind now. So welcome Inigo as well. Welcome.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So let me start with the question directly to Christoph first. Christoph, I know a little bit about your story, but for the sake of other people who have joined this conversation, can you tell us a little bit how you became, how was your journey towards becoming the race director?
Yeah. Hello to everybody first again. Yeah, for me, the getting really in touch with X-Alps started in 2009 when a friend of mine was working there in the group, and they were having some problem with the airspaces around the route of the X-Alps, and she then phoned me and asked me if I could help them, and I said okay, I will do so. And that's how I came into the organization, how I met Hannes Arch, who was the main head of the organization. And we made friends each other. We saw how we were working, the one and the other one, and we saw that we could fit together quite well. And then in 2011, it was my first race where I was the race director.
Good one. And for Inigo, for you, how did it start? Where did the journey began for you?
It started in 2012, but 1 year before, watching the X-Alps, of course, as always. We were enjoying the race because I am really a fan, a psycho of that kind of race. And we talked with a friend, and I told him we have to make this in Spain, in the Pyrenees, to cross. The idea was the same from the beginning, to cross the Pyrenees from coast to coast, from shore to shore. And we were talking. I asked my wife, because she was the most important person to start this this race, no? And then I asked a friend, "What do you think? We can start this?" And we started. Yes.
Before doing anything crazy, ask your wife first.
Yes, of course, because we live together, and I knew that it was going to imply a lot of work, and was important to ask her. Yes.
Nice. Okay. I'll come straight down to the question that has been running on my mind. Christoph, this question goes to you. Um, I understand you get about 100 applications per year. That's what I've been reading about. Now, how many of these applications are coming from this side of the world?
From Asia, you mean? Yeah, maybe 5 to 10, something
Okay.
like this.
Okay. And
More 5 than 10. 10 is
okay.
quite a lot. Yeah.
And why do you think is the reason of such low numbers from this side of the country?
Yeah, maybe the pilots you have there, they don't see the possibility to come here because it's quite expensive, I guess, for them to come here. So it's quite hard for them to come here. And yeah, also if you really want to have a chance in this race, you need to know the Alps quite well. So it would be very helpful for them to train here for a long time before the race. And yeah, I think this is quite expensive on the one side, and also not so easy because you need a visa to come into the countries. And yeah, it's not so easy for your pilots to come here. Maybe that's one of the reasons why they don't apply for place on the race.
Yeah, I think it's less to do with expenses because uh, only expenses from the ticket side, but the overall arrangement.
Yeah, it's
Having
not only the flight coming
yeah
here. I mean, life here is much more expensive than life in India. I never been to India, but I had the big luck to come to Nepal quite often, and yeah, it's much more cheaper to spend holidays in Nepal than spending holidays here. So I guess it must be yeah. For most of the Indian pilots, quite impossible without sponsors to come here.
and if money were not the constraint, what would you think would be can still pilots from India maybe uh, think of applying for applications and have a decent enough chance to get selected? What would such criteria be if money were not the constraint?
For me,
Pilots would
the
still want
money
to.
is the money is not. I don't know about the money, so for me that's not an item. Yeah, I think selecting somebody, the process of selecting somebody is always having a close look on him. And you know that it's not only flying skills you need, you also need to have mountaineering skills if you want to be selected for it. And if somebody can present experience in mountaineering, in flying big cross-country flights on himself, and also having experience with competition situations, flying in PWC or something like this, then it's an interesting pilot for us.
That's a good point. Yeah, and Inigo, I remember you also keep getting at least one Indian pilot entry per year. So, what do you think? How we can increase these numbers? How would you propose that the pilots from this side of the world work towards?
Well, I have to recognize I don't know really well this sport, the paragliding in India, of course, or in Asia in general. But I don't know. I see there are not many applications on the X-Pyr. We have the same problem, not just for India, from Asia in general. I don't know how to improve this really, because I think it's a matter of the sports in that countries, in your countries. No? I think is to give an idea of what kind of races we are really. But before that, I think the sport must be well known in the country with the people, and this kind, especially this kind of races, no, hack and fly races.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know. It's a matter of you to is what you are doing now. Of course, giving to the people the idea, no, of this sport, what this sport is. I don't know how to improve it. Sorry, I don't have the answer.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I was just trying to see if there could be some ideas, but it's completely okay. I understand this part. So it's more of a lifestyle thing. You mean to say that? Yeah,
Probably.
okay. And definitely the culture towards the adventure sports and picking this hike and fly sport in India needs a lot of push to be developed, and if people are able to visualize what this sport can do to them, and a lot of it also comes with from the aspect of how they can earn money out of it, and there are multiple aspects. It's not only for a youngster. If they are able to connect to these ideas, it's much better for them, because a lot of our young pilots are going towards tandem business. So we definitely see there's a pull towards the money aspect of it. They definitely have to work in that. Go towards a way of creating a life for themselves. They're definitely going in that direction. Yeah. So what is the culture that promotes paragliding pilots or any person in Europe for that matter? So if we can discuss about that culture aspect, maybe people will get more hints.
Yeah, I think, as you say, they are trying to make money out of it and getting paraglider pilot in the tandem business. But this tandem business is, of course, helping you to get skills in flying, but it's different skills than the ones being a good XC pilot. Normally, because yeah, if you make tandem flights, it's another thing normally, and I think to really increase this culture of the hike and fly competitions, you need to have really good XC pilots, and you need to have really sportive people who are fast running up the mountain or fast on the ground also. This is, in my eyes, not really the same track as being a tandem pilot.
You're right. And also, do you think organizing such small hike and fly competitions in India might help?
Yeah, of course. This is how it starts. You need to have competitions in this way, and then people get engaged with it, and they are training for it, and then it will develop. And then also for us, it's much easier to pick out one of the pilots from your country for our competitions, because then we see that they are having experience in this kind of competitions. And this is what for me is very helpful when I'm thinking about selecting somebody or not.
And
I think
yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I think this kind of competitions or weekend competitions like border race are a very good example, because I think they are easy to organize and very interesting for the people, for the participants, for the competitors, and the public to follow it. If you use the live tracking system, and in a weekend you can do very interesting competitions. They are based on and go and return. So it's easy to organize, starting from one point and setting that point to as goal for the competition. It's a good start, I think so.
And will you have any pointers for? There are definitely some organizers in the chat group I can already see. So will you have any pointers for the organizers as well, and how to go about starting? They are experienced in organizing Cat 2 competitions for accuracy for XC, but there is no such experience in organizing a hike and fly race within the country.
I think that's best Inigo tells something about it because he knows the whole bunch of organizing it. I'm only a small part of this organization, but Inigo, I think he knows the whole thing.
Well, I think you asked me about some points to the organizer, you mean?
Yes, some pointers for the organizer how they should move forward in the direction of organizing hike and fly races. Yeah,
I think the good way is to start with a small competition. It's important. The live tracking is is absolutely needed, of course, because it's the way you organize this kind of races, and you don't have to think on difficult competition. Just try to make the easy way for a competition. Try to start with not too many people. In fact, the first edition of the X-Pyr was with 13 teams, just 13. And I think it was nice for us because we learned a lot from that. And regarding the organization, it was easier to organize. No? It was the first time. So I think this kind of clues could be nice for an organizer that starts now.
yeah, and I think with the introduction of X-Alps, whenever people think about hike and fly races here, they think about making it really big in the Himalayan mountains. And the good point from Inigo was, okay, you don't have to really think that big. You can think small as well and find a way to organize those successfully first. And from the safety aspect of search and rescue, for that matter, Inigo, how important that aspect is for these races? Because
the main one for me is, sorry, is can you hear me correctly or no? Or do you have problems?
Yes,
okay,
I can hear you correctly.
Okay, yeah, for me it's the main one. Before starting anything else, you have to have clear the security, the safety, the competition. That's why we, from the first edition, because in Pyrenees the GSM coverage is really low. It's not the same in the Alps. The Alps is better. So in the first edition, we obliged to use a spot GPSs. So GPS connected that transmits the signal via satellite, phone satellite. Spot, InReach, or any one of them. And I think is the most important part, especially because we need always to know where the pilots are. Not only because it's interesting for the followers, but it's really important for us to know that they are okay in every moment. And
yeah, it's the same for X-Alps. So safety is the most important thing for us, and also we are having satellite trackers mandatory, not only the GSM trackers. Yeah, this is also selecting a pilot is the most important point in selecting somebody, that we know that he is not taking too high risk. It's nearly impossible to really know it, but that's what we try to do.
And the point about GSM and satellite trackers, I know Red Bull X-Alps already has their own dedicated live tracking mechanism, while in X-Pyr we used more the live track mechanism. So this using such a software also makes more sense. How do you keep it separated, the running data as well as the flying data integrated together? The separate running and flying data integrated together.
In our case, the system for the moment we use, and it's regarding the budget too, because the one from X-Alps is really expensive, and it's really nice and it's very good and it's the best one, of course, but it's expensive for us. But in the system we use, like Track 24, we can make or mix both signals in the same pilot. So if for some minutes we don't get a GSM signal from one pilot, we get the satellite GPS signal. So they have 1 point every 10 minutes minimum, or 5 minutes. It depends on the contract you have hired. And so everything is centralized in the same system.
Yeah, and Alok, I think you were asking if we make a difference in between flying data and walking data or hiking data, but for us it's the same. So we don't need to make a difference between this data. So the way of displaying data is the same, and also of transmitting data is the same. It's no difference in between flying or walking.
Yes.
It's just covering the distance.
Yeah, we just know where the pilot is, and if we see the speed and some more other things, we say, okay, we have a filter there programmed, which is saying, okay, now he must be flying, or otherwise he's hiking.
Yeah,
and so we can display him in a distant way, because flying he gets another symbol than walking.
Yeah, and definitely such a thing didn't exist before, and you had to create it by yourself first, right?
Yeah, I mean, as Inigo said, our live tracking system is built by ourselves or by a company who made it for us, but this is just something which belongs to X-Alps, and it's owned by X-Alps.
And can other organizers um, use those services from X-Alps?
They can use it, but yeah, it's a question of money. Inigo was asking for it also, but it was not in his budget. So.
Okay. So I have one last question before I open it to everyone in the chat room. Definitely, one of the aspects of these hike and fly races is it is not a regulated one. I mean, there is no FAI or central aviation organization that is involved here, and who are setting up the rules. So you have to set up your own set of rules here, and it is a matter of how because you are defining your own safety standards, you can be on this side of the safety standards, which FAI might feel, okay, they have two reserve parachutes in category 1 competitions, but in both X-Pyr and X-Alps, you are supposed to only have one reserve parachute with you. So such decisions, how often do you encounter a difference in such decisions in rule making, and then you choose to be on whatever side you want to be? How do you go about this? How do you go about this thought process of keeping it still keeping it safe for the pilots?
Yeah, we always try to adapt it to the technical possibilities you have at the moment, and also on the other hand, on the requests we have for the safety of our race, and yeah, it's always trying to balance it in the right way. And yeah, for example, taking two rescues with you means that you have 1 kilo more you have to carry around with you. You have to build the harnesses in a way that they can carry 2 rescues. And on the other hand, we look, hey, how many rescue deployments did we really have in all the races, and how big would be gain we would have with 2 rescues. And so it's always trying to find out the right balance on these things. And of course, we adapt it every time new when we have a new race in front of us.
Okay, thank you very much for your inputs. I now open up for the questions within the chat group. If anyone has questions, they can raise their hands or let Bhushan know before I go ahead and ask new questions. Also, you can ask in Hindi. I can translate if need be. please go ahead. Don't worry about asking in Hindi or English. Doesn't matter in this case. Hindi
I
में
don't
भी
need it. I
questions
don't
पूछ
need it.
सकते हैं.
Alok, sorry. One thing, I need to go away
Yeah.
for 1 minute. I will be back in 1 minute. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. No problem.
Thank
Christoph.
you.
Yeah.
You don't need to translate Hindi into English for me because my Hindi is better than my English.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Do we just meanwhile I'll check. Do we have any questions, guys? I mean, for now, okay. There's no question coming up. Maybe Bhushan has a question. He has already pinged me. Yeah.
Hello, Inigo.
Wait,
Hello.
Bhushan. Let Christoph come. We can
Okay, yeah,
start
yeah.
in a minute.
Hello.
Hello.
My question was about the intent of these huge races that exist in the paragliding world. Now, as I understand, there are three aspects to it, mostly running, hiking, and flying. Somewhere, is that a contention while deciding the route, or is it a continuous discussion in which you maybe vote on more flying, less running, less hiking? Or was this always the wish to keep all these three aspects in equal weight in the race, X-Pyr as well as X-Alps?
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me answer first. For me, I think the race is thought, yeah, especially for flying, because the most interesting part of the race is the fly part. So when we design the route, we are thinking all the time in flying. But we don't forget it's a hike and fly race, of course, and the weather, of course, the weather could change a lot every day. And when you design the route, you think, or I think, in very good conditions of weather, so the route could be flyable in all the route could be flyable. That's the idea. But as we know, it's just in a perfect world, the situation. The X-Alps, I think, is similar, but Christoph could help us.
Yeah, and the X-Alps, it's the same. We also try to make the route flyable all the time. We have turn points where the pilots have to sign a signboard. Sometimes this signboard is in the valley. So this is clear that the pilots have to land down in the valley, and it's going to be an interruption of the flight because they will not be able to take off again from the valley, so they have to hike up. But yeah, setting up the route, we always try to build a route which is flyable. Because like Inigo said, the flying is giving the dynamics into this race. In the walking or hiking part, everything is moving much slower than in the flying part. So
And it's
flying
quite
is
boring, no?
yeah. You watch there 1 hour or 2 hours, and it's not really happening something. But if people are flying, every second is
Yes.
pulling your interest.
Yes, that was actually my the motivation for my question as well. Because do you think if somehow the running or the hiking part didn't dominate after few days, maybe some pilots would get excellent flying condition from Chamonix, or some might not, because they are maybe a few hours late or maybe 1 day late after the leader. So that puts the people who catch up, pilots who catch up, at a significant disadvantage in my understanding, a preliminary understanding, which is not the case in many other sports, say rally championships, in which stages are timed. And okay, if somebody arrives late by 2 or 3 minutes, they take off 2 or 3 minutes late. But the advantage is very limited. Whereas in races like especially X-Alps, the advantage goes on increasing after certain number of days. Do you somewhere feel something similar?
Yeah, of course we do. We were discussing quite often about this topic. Yeah, trying to think about alternatives. But yeah, if you really gather everybody together on a turn point and say we wait several times there, and then everybody is allowed to move there, and we have a new start from this turn point, so everybody's getting the start in the same weather condition again, and chances will be the same for everybody again. This, for example, would be an alternative, but yeah, it gives the race another feeling, because it will be not the same race as before. And one big advantage of X-Alps is that it's so easy to understand. If you want to explain how the race works to somebody who's even not flying, he understands it after 2 sentences you were talking to him. And that's also what the spectators makes them addicted to it, because it's so easy for them to understand. And bringing in rules like this, that we have several starts again there, will make it much less easier to understand.
Thank you for your answers.
Yeah. Next question is from Andy. Andy, go ahead.
Thanks, Alok. Hi, Christoph and Inigo. Any of you can choose to answer this question. I'll just quickly put it across in two parts. First thing is regarding the safety aspect. As you said that you guys focus a lot on safety. Yet the conflict that I feel from my side that I saw while watching or following X-Alps, the recent edition, was that there were pilots which were taking off in conditions which were almost inhumane or super dangerous. Like you see snow is falling on the takeoff point and the pilots are still going for it. You guys have a lot of audience. This is pretty much the race which is watched worldwide. Does it have a negative aspect to the sport? Because everyone like, hey, I want to look at this and I want to do this. So maybe it also inspires other pilots to take off in some similar conditions. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Second question that I would like to ask is that every single race you have some specific pilots which are veterans, and then some newcomers. Is there some kind of pattern you follow for this? And if yes, then how exactly do you pick up newcomers? And then I would like to know the case of Tom de Dolodot. Like he has been a veteran for a lot of races, pretty much since the beginning, I believe. And then his track record for the race was a little bit difficult when he was not able to finish for six editions, I believe. And this was his first edition, yet he continued to get a position in the field. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on both of these things, if you can elaborate.
I think,
okay.
Christoph, yeah, it's a question for you.
Okay, I maybe start with the answer. The first thing, the safety point, the main safety is coming out of the pilot. So it's always the pilot who is the most important point about the safety, because I need to have pilots which are dealing in the right way with the conditions. And of course, X-Alps is not flying in smooth conditions most of the time. It will be always on the edge some days and some points. But the really important point is that the pilots know if they can deal with these conditions or not. And yeah, I don't know how far you are into paragliding, but for sure you know that if a condition is flyable for somebody, it doesn't mean that it's flyable for the other one. And you really have to know if these conditions are flyable for you or not. And you have to make the right decision by yourself, and that's where the safety is coming from. As far as I experienced all the X-Alps events we were having until now, I think we have the feedback that most of the time things were running in an acceptable way. Of course, sometimes we were not in the safe way anymore, but yeah, what to do about it? I mean, it's a race where everybody has to make it on his conscience and on his own. I don't know the English word now for it. On his own Verantwortung is the German word for it. So the pilot is the important point.
Yes, I fully agree
Yeah.
with Christoph. The problem with this kind of races is that the organization couldn't set limits to the task, let's say task, as a common competition. In a common competition, yes, the meet director can cancel a race, for example, because a storm is coming, for example. But in this kind of races that where the teams are in a route and they could be in different points of the route. One team could be in the middle of a storm, but other team could be in perfect weather. So you cannot make anything about that. You as organizer, as director, I mean. So the safety comes strictly from the teams, or the pilots, of course. They know their limits, they know their skills, and as Christoph said, the limit from one pilot could be totally different from another pilot.
Yeah, I think this is also what goes within your selection process as well, Christoph, Inigo, that you see this aspect specifically as well. If the pilot is not crazy enough to do.
Yes, yes, we study a lot, or we try to study a lot the, let's say, the curricula of the pilot. Sometimes they send this data. We need to check that his level or her level, of course. But some of the times we have to find or to try to find data about him or her, because we need to know the minimum level to start the race, of course, because we fly or they fly in really hard conditions, and it could be tricky to participate on the X something. X-Pyr or X-Alps.
Yeah, this is what makes this process of selecting the athletes so difficult. This is really the hard work on it. So the rest is easy to check how far was the biggest distance he was ever flying or she was ever flying, and how often is she flying or he flying. That's easy, but to find out about this mind setting of the participants, that's a really hard thing.
And that's where you specialize, both of you.
Yeah.
Andy, go ahead. Does it answer your question? Andy, I think you have a speaker on. It comes as a echo.
Yeah, probably was too high, but yeah, that's fine. I think whatever they said is it's up to the pilot. The second part, if you can elaborate, there are some fixed contenders, veterans, and there are some newcomers that you guys pick up. Any fixed quota regarding that, and the thing that I said about Tom DeDolodot, if that's okay, but if not, you can move on. Up to you.
In our case, in the X-Pyr, we consider it's a race for both kinds of pilots, of course, well-known pilots, but we always keep some places for new pilots, because there must be, we have to give the opportunity to new pilots or new teams, because it's a team race. We cannot forget that, but based on the pilot, of course. And we always keep some places on many of them. For example, this year we had 45 teams on the race, but just 9 or 10 teams repeat from other editions. So we always open places for other pilots. Yes, I think it's important, especially to open the number of countries we accept for the race, for example. That's why we, in certain cases, probably we don't select some pilots from some countries that could have a very good level, but we select other pilots from other countries that apparently have less level, less skills for this kind of competitions.
Okay, Christoph, I have unmuted you. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Somehow my internet connection was getting lost. So sorry, I didn't catch the last minute, I think.
Okay.
Nothing strange, don't worry.
Okay.
Nothing that you don't know about. So the question from Andy was, how do you juggle between the veteran pilots and the new pilots coming in every edition? Is there
Yeah.
a specific quota? Yeah.
There is not a specific quota. It always depends on who of the new pilots is coming in, and if there are interesting faces coming in, we try to put them in the race. And yeah, if some veteran pilots need to leave the race because of this, yeah, we push them out. But there's not really a specific way of doing it. The other thing is we always try to be international, so we don't fill up the field only with Austrian and Swiss pilots. We try to give other pilots also a chance, and this is also the point why Tom de Dolodot, for example, was coming in, because yeah, he's coming from Belgium, so we don't have so much alternative there.
All right. Next question. Okay, something interesting comes to my mind. One of the pilots once asked me that if all the veterans keep getting selected and the newcomers are less and less, there's always the gap between the veterans and the newcomers keeps on increasing. But although I don't see those in the results, in the results, you always see there is different. But there was this question that came up once to me.
Yeah, but you see it in the results. We quite often had new pilots ending quite in front of the field.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody behind Kriegel, but if you don't count Kriegel because he's not countable, so then you see that quite often new faces were winning the race.
Yes. Okay. Cool. So I have a next question coming from Jigish. He doesn't have a mic, so he has asked me to go ahead with the question. It is now going to both of you as the race directors. What is the most hardest, most interesting, and most enjoyable task that you perform as a race director? What is the most hardest first? Let's start with that.
The most hardest is to select the athletes.
And for you, Inigo?
Could be, yes, the same. Could be.
He's copying your answer, Christoph. I can see.
because my role in the X-Pyr is a bit different from Christoph's role. Sorry. And probably I cope more task than him because I'm the organizer, not only the director of the race, but I'm the organizer too. But yes, I think the selection could be one of the worst tasks for the races. Yeah. No. There is one more.
Finding the sponsors.
No, for me it's almost impossible. Finding a sponsor is the worst. Yes, with no doubt. And another one is to fight against the NOTAMs and the restrictions, the flying restrictions around the route. It's terrible hard work to try to find to get better permissions to cross certain areas. And yeah, the worst part.
For you, Christoph, who does this part of taking these permissions across different countries? Because for you, it's even a bigger thing, no?
I do it at the moment, but yeah, it's getting too much for me. And I was asking to get some support on this point, because it's really rising up always more and more points there, because it's getting much more complicated around Europe with all these things. In the beginning it was much easier, but now it's getting really much more complicated. Yes. And it's also so dynamically, it's so easy to not know about something in the beginning, because we set up the route nearly 1 year before, and then some things pop up shortly before or even during the race, and you have to react in a way about it, and this is really a hard job.
In fact, for example, in the last edition, the same day, some pilots were going to cross one zone. The national authorities, aerial authorities, called me. You cannot cross that zone. Eh? How can it be possible? I got a NOTAM to cross that zone at a certain altitude. No, you cannot. Okay, so we had to forbid to cross flying one zone at the end of the race. We got many people asking about why they landed before the end of the race, and we had to explain that, of course, because we are pilots. We like pilot flying, so we want to make the experience, the full experience flying, of course, but we have to fight with certain things we cannot cope.
Next thing, what is the most interesting thing you do as a race director? According to you, what is the most interesting part of your job?
Yeah, all the job is quite interesting, but the point I like very much is to meet all these people, to meet all the athletes, all the teams. That's making it really, really fun. I mean, sometimes it's hard also, because you run into deep discussions with them, and sometimes the discussions get quite emotional. But I enjoy it very much to meet all these people.
Yeah, for me it's the same, especially at the end of the race, the final party, with everybody relaxed, and you can speak with all of them and enjoy the race. Yes, and maybe
my problem on the final party always is that I'm so tired after 2 weeks.
I'm tired. I'm tired, but I forget during the last day. Yeah.
He takes it as part of one more day. Okay, I have to endure one more day. Okay.
The designing of the route could be interesting. For me, it's a really interesting part of the race, when we decide what turn points to put in the route. When we talk with some clubs in different zones, the Pyrenees, I like it.
Okay, and would you regard the interesting part as the enjoyable part as well, or do you have any other answers to it? To that, what is the most enjoyable part in your profession for you?
Okay. To speak with the teams is the most enjoyable. Interesting is the same for me. Maybe the route, the designing the route, but these parts.
Cool. So now we have a question from Rohan. Rohan, go ahead.
Hello, Inigo, and hello, Christoph. It is nice to have you here, and everything that I heard was quite fascinating and really good to know. There is just one more thing that I will be quite fascinating to know is there was a rule in the whole rule book, and it said that whenever an athlete is climbing over the glaciers, he need to be accompanied by a professional. So in the race, the time is a very crucial part. So how do you how do you manage to get the professional in, or how do you anticipate what athlete is reaching at what glacier and what sort of help he would need? So
okay, if I understand your question right, you want to know how the mountain guides are meeting the athletes in the right moment. that's normally not such a big problem because we have a bunch of mountain guides on the different places which we can connect with the teams. The only point where it's getting sometimes not so easy is when the athletes are flying into these points, because then sometimes the athletes land somewhere on a glacier and you really need to get somebody there very fast way. Then it's getting crucial and not easy. But normally we have a quite big group of contacts, mountain guides we can contact, and yeah, we just join together the teams with these mountain guides.
Sorry, Rohan, you are muted. Hold on a second.
Yeah, that really answers the question, and it seems like it's a lot of money to be invested in, and yeah, so it's really difficult task. If the same thing would be, if you have to organize in India, it's really difficult, I guess. Yes, Alok, do you agree?
No, I think it's cheaper than the Cat 2 competition.
Yeah.
I would feel that way. Because you have to ensure retrieves, you have to ensure food, and there are a lot of things that you do in hike and fly race. It's a less investment, honestly. But yeah, I may be wrong. If you want to take it from a marketing perspective, it's a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it will be less.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, but for organizing a race in your country, I think if you make it in the style of border race, it could be the easier way to do it. Also very interesting because I love this border race because you only have one point where everything starts and should end also. To see the different decisions where the people go, which track they take, they are completely open to choose whatever they like to do, and I love this format. It's quite fun.
Okay. Let's go ahead. Badri, you are next in queue.
Yeah. Hi, Inigo. My question to you. Thank you so much for coming and joining and giving us both the races knowledge, both of you. And I quite like your idea of like weekend races. We are still not doing in India. I think it's a time like we should look for these weekend races in the season. Okay, my question to you here is, when Alok got selected in 2016 for X-Pyr, we were all so happy. The entire community in India, the people who are freelance pilots and many others were so happy. We all thought that we were only going there. You know, it was so nice. So I just wanted to ask you that what decisions have made you to select Alok?
Okay. For Alok and other pilots, it's the same, exactly the same. We based, of course, first of all, in the skills of the pilot. Then we check the country. It's important for us because if there is just one pilot from one country, it's important to get people selected from another country, but always thinking first of all in the security part. So he needs to have the minimum skill, the level to enter the race. And in case of Alok, that was what happened. He was the only pilot from India, I think so, in that moment.
Yeah.
And we check his flight in Bir, no? I remember it was in Bir, no?
Yes.
Where you had many flights. We check that Bir is a well-known zone, and we try to check different flights from Alok. We ask him from on tracks, or his flights. We ask him mountaineering experience. It wasn't the best one in that moment, but we have to set. Not always we have to focus in the mountaineering skills. We prefer to focus more in the paragliding skills because it's the most dangerous part of this kind of races, no? Especially in Pyrenees, because they are lower than X-Alps, the Alps. And that's what we do, basically. Yeah.
Okay, so nice for that answer. And one more small thing, extension to that. In future, any pilot wants to apply for any of these two races, that what is it like they have to maintain in their record or in a profile? When they apply, they forward that to you to make your job easy.
I always say the same. You have to sell yourself as in the better way possible. The most information we get from you is better for us because we don't need to collect that information. We will check that information. We will check with other pilots or other organizers, but that's the way for me. So, Christoph.
Yeah, it's same for me. I mean, if you want to apply for the race and you send in all your experience you have in competitions and all the flights you made, you have them uploaded to a server where I can have a look on it, and you send me the links of the good flights and all this. If you present yourself in a nice way, then of course it's easier for me, and it's giving me a better chance to have a close look on it. I will try to have a close look anyhow, but the better you sell yourself, the better also is the feeling about you, because also X-Alps is somehow one point is presenting yourself there, and if you can see that somebody is doing it in a nice way, the confidence in him is getting bigger.
Okay, so for flying, it's very easy to maintain tracks because you have the Vario. For mountaineering, so we still don't have much culture of carrying the tracker. So do you suggest that for mountaineering also carry the tracker and have the documenting that?
No, you don't need to carry a tracker. I mean, with mountaineering, it's much more interesting which kind of routes you were taking, which kind of peaks you were summiting. Yeah, this is more information. It's not so much about the track. Normally, mountaineers don't present what they did by the tracks. It's just showing which routes they were taking, which summits they were making. Yeah, then that's easy to check.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you.
Okay.
I never asked this question to Inigo, which Badri asked. Good. Okay, let's go ahead with the queue. Manoj, you are next.
Yeah, look, can you hear me?
Yes, Manoj. If you can start your video, that would be nice. Then both Christoph and
I'm so
Inigo.
sorry, I've got a bad network. So
Cool. Go ahead then. Yeah.
So in one of the podcasts, where Kriegel was very keen on basically doing an X-Alp kind of a thing to be done in Himalayas. So my question is, do you see this possibility of bringing X-Alps? I know it is basically done in alpine regions. Do you see a possibility of this happening maybe in India or China, so that a broader it basically helps to increase the brand? And extension to that, if at all, if you have to move on to this, what are the financial constraints and what are the logistic constraints you see to bring that sport out here?
We only would have a chance to bring it into India with the local supporter. So yeah, we would need to have somebody there who is really already having some kind of experience with it, best already having built it up in a small competition like this weekend competition, and starting from this and making it bigger there. Yep, if you really want to have it as a Red Bull event, yeah, it's a deal to ask Red Bull about it, and I'm not the right person to talk about this.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely. You answered this question earlier itself, Christoph. That until the local organizers don't come up and do certain things, it won't be possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a follow-up of this question was from Daksh already. if such a thing, it's more in terms of your suggestion. If people were to try and collaborate with you or your teams, how would this collaboration work between you and the local organizers to host such an event in India? If there is already such a local organizer that exists, but I think you answered the same way just a while ago.
Yeah, I think I already told it. So if you really have a local competition working there and you want to make it bigger, and if really Red Bull would be interested in it, they for sure would supply you with a platform and things like this.
Okay. Okay. I believe there are no further questions. Vishal asked a question a while ago, India, Pakistan, Nepal possible, but I don't think it's possible for political reasons. Anyhow, let's move on to the next question. Naveen, yeah, go ahead, ask your question.
Hello.
Yeah, Naveen, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My question is to Christoph especially. As we can see from the last few years, Kriegel is dominating the race continuously, and most of the times in the race he seems unbeatable. So in your opinion, Mr. Christoph, how he does that and how he's so much better than others? I just want to know in your opinion as the race organizer.
No one knows.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people who want to know how he's doing this. I also would like to know how he's doing it.
Because sometimes it's like who is coming the second, because he is already first and who comes the second. So I would just like to, if you have any opinion about that, how is so better than others, so far much better than others.
Yeah, I don't know how he's doing it. He calls it making a magic move, and he always gets it and really makes this magic move. But on the other hand, I think there are not so many pilots in the world who have so many skills in so many different disciplines in paragliding. He's the very good acro pilot, very good cross-country pilot, very good competition pilot. Everywhere there he was winning, and so putting all this together, and now also with his physical strengths, he was building up a lot of physical strengths in the last years, because when he was starting X-Alps, he was from my point of view not so strong like he is now, and so he's improving everywhere, and he's working on all these details and really working hard on everything. And maybe that's a way how to come there, but of course you also need to have this special, I don't know what.
Yeah, it seems we are looking for same answers, or we are looking for same answers. No problem. Thanks a lot.
Welcome.
Christoph, are you waiting for a winner from X-Alps that won't come from Switzerland? All winners are coming from Switzerland.
Yeah, no, I was trying to select the right one, and he was quite on his heels and also having the nose in front sometimes. But in the end, it didn't work.
Yeah.
So for you both, Christoph and Inigo, do pilots surprise you by their moves in every edition? Do you have? When once the route is planned and everything you have imagined, and if pilots come up with something special every edition, do such things happen to you quite often? And do you have such an example?
I think I didn't catch the meaning now of your question. Maybe Inigo starts with this. Maybe he.
No. I didn't catch it perfectly too. Sorry.
Okay.
No. The meaning.
Yeah. So, do pilots ever surprise you by doing things that you wouldn't have imagined? Do you have such an example? And any special move that you wouldn't have thought, okay, this could happen, but pilots are doing it during the race?
Not so much. I mean, for example, on the last race, Kriegel top landing on Titlis, it's nothing where I did not expect that anybody could top land there. I was expecting that maybe if the weather is perfect, there will be some pilots top landing there. But yeah, in this case, how he did it was surprising me again, because yeah, he was just passing this thunderstorm cell in the right point, and going ahead and being able to top land on Titlis. So this is surprising again, how he makes his magic moves. And yeah, of course, some other pilots also do some very nice moves sometimes. This is nice to see, but yeah, not really surprising me in a way.
In the case, I think it was in your edition, Alok.
Yeah, 3 days.
2016. Yes, for example, when they start flying in incredible conditions, that me as a pilot thought that it was impossible to fly. It wasn't flyable. But you start to see one pilot, in this case was Kriegel, yeah, starting to fly. In one zone, I perfectly know, because it's close to my home. I thought it was impossible to fly with those conditions, the wind coming from the opposite side. It was a strong wind, fine. It was impossible, no, for us to fly. And in the organization, we were thinking, oh, it's a walking day, and both quite boring. And for once, Kriegel started flying, and after him, 7 or 8 pilots started flying too, and they flew perfectly, and they covered a long distance. So we were really, yeah, it was incredible for us. It was a surprise.
Wow. In our edition, he finished it in 3 days, and we were like, okay. And we were not able to fly for next 2 or 3 days as well. And he kept ahead of the bad conditions. And yeah, we knew how special he was. I mean, we already knew, but we could see it right then. All of us were on the ground.
Yeah, and in experience, it's a bit special with that, because the beginning of the race, at the end of the race, aren't exactly flyable, no, because they are quite close to the coast, and the conditions usually aren't the best one to starting to fly. So it's really important to reach the best zone as soon as possible. Yeah, for example, it happened to you, I think so. No, you were the west part, the previous.
Yes, and it was the first race as well. Yeah. So, okay, we have next question from Hiren. Hiren, go ahead.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Yeah. So this question is related to what you guys just spoke, like, how Kriegel top landed at Titlis, and this X-Pyr race, whether you thought the conditions were difficult, but then he flew and few other pilots followed. And so sometimes it happens, situation where the pilot is not from the similar area, he's from far away, and he probably doesn't know everything about the region. Okay, the winds, weather, one can see it, but anyways, so safety point of view, if anything goes wrong, I mean, like, do you really think it's advisable for pilots to do things like that, where the thunderstorm clouds are there one side and he has to land? Because say it's a Europe where you guys organize these competitions, but if anything goes wrong in India, if any competition, if any pilot is landed somewhere and any accident happens, it's usually they catch the organizers. So safety point of view, how would you deal with it? How would you tell pilots what to look after or not? Or will you just leave it up to pilot what to do?
Yeah, I think this was answered already, Hiren, that usually they consider the selection itself, they consider pilot more responsible for it than themselves. And of course, in India, the setup is completely different, that the organizers get caught for any accidents that happen, but it might be the case over there as well, right, Christoph, Inigo? If anything happens to the pilot for whatever decisions that they have made, you also might get questioned.
Yeah, of course. We also have the risk that we are getting questioned for it or being the responsibles for it.
Yeah.
So you always have one feet in the jail.
Yeah, in our race, the teams signs a discharge of responsibilities, but I don't know if it is useful in a judgment. I don't know if it's useful really, but
Yeah, it's just a piece of paper, but
yeah.
you don't know what will happen in case.
Yeah.
Mm.
Usually they all know the risk is their responsibility, and in the briefing previous to the race, we always say, don't remember this is a race, this is to enjoy, to try to enjoy, so please don't take more risks than needed. But it's easy to say and probably not so easy to accomplish in the moment, no, in the race, probably.
Yeah, right. Well answered. Yeah, because in mountaineering, one can push, and there is still other things like always like weather. Like say if you're going for summit climbing or something, you have to find the right camp if the weather is getting bad or things like that. But in terms of paragliding, sometimes we pilots keep pushing, and people who are watching the race and a lot of people, newcomers, they would be always excited. Oh man, there's a big cloud. Let's don't care because we saw Krigal doing it. I don't know. So it also markets that way. No, I don't know. Do you think it's a wise way? Do you guys feel a bit responsible if the people start flying little irresponsible? I would say, of course, they have to be responsible enough, but if the winds are strong and pilots keep flying, when do you guys raise the red flag? Means when do you guys say, okay, guys, it's not safe, or you just let pilots decide about the weather and everything?
Yeah, in the end, always the pilot has to decide about it because he is the one being there. I'm abroad. I'm not there. I cannot really judge about how the conditions are there. So I must trust in my pilots, and that's like I said before already. Everything is about selecting the right pilots.
True.
And you need to have the right pilots there, and I need to trust them. Of course, I'm going to tell, like Inigo said on the briefing, that they shouldn't take too much risk on everything. But yeah, the being sure that they understand this way in the right way is just by knowing that they are trustable. It's a matter of fact how they are. They must be the right ones. They must be self-conscious about what they are doing there.
Anyway, we both have a rule in our rules that could stop one pilot if we think he's taking more risks than necessary. But it's hard to check that. You have to be really, really sure that you can apply that rule. For me, for the moment, I haven't applied that rule. Never.
Yeah, we also didn't never apply this rule in that sense. Only if it's a medical issue with him, then we did.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's all I needed to know. Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have any more questions, guys? Okay, I don't see any more question. Let me see if I have something to talk about. Maybe I have spoken everything, whatever I wanted to ask. One quick question. There was one aspect a pilot discussed with me some weeks ago. How serious are you both about the dope test? And have you ever encountered any pilot violating the dope test, the drug test? And how does this check happen at both for X-Pyr and X-Alps?
We have a doping test in the beginning, in this preparation week we have normally the doping test is quite shortly before the main race start, and then we are testing at least every athlete one time during the race.
Okay.
But we never had any issue about this test, so nobody was ever caught doping.
As and when things can get more competitive, maybe in the future, sometimes something can happen. Never know.
Yeah, of course. You never know how it's going to develop, but yeah, that's so far how we do it, and the experience until now was that there was no issue about it.
Yeah, the experience is more or less the same. We can surprise the teams during the race with a dope test, and they have to carry with the responsibilities, of course. And if the test is positive, of course, this pilot will be the race will be closed for him forever, and we will publish everywhere that he's a cheater, of course, because it's not a good idea, no? The mentality of the people that participate on this kind of race is totally different, are far away from this kind of practice.
And yeah, I think it makes sense to keep continuing in that direction as well. Yeah. Changes. We've seen some changes as and when pilots oversmart the organizers, including considering even the toe takeoff from Kriegel and his supporter back in 2011 edition, I think. Also the team flying aspect. What are the changes that we can expect in the future as well? Do you still have some changes coming in for the next edition?
No, at the moment everything is so complicated here with this coronavirus that yeah, it's making us such big headache how it's going to go on with everything, that yeah, the changes maybe come out of this, but the rest of the rule setting at the moment looks quite well done for us.
Yeah, maybe you add a corona test as well along with the dope test.
Yes. In our case, we have a big change, of course, the date, because we have canceled the original date in June, 21st of June, and we are trying to find a new date at the end of August or beginning of September. So it's a big change, of course. And, it could imply a change of route. But this edition, we are going to apply some changes to the route, especially, and some hidden waypoints, maybe.
Hidden waypoints. That's interesting.
Yes, that could be revealed just 2 days before the race. All events to the pilots, to the teams, not only for the public. That's the idea, to make the race more interesting.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
We cannot play with this with the sponsored waypoints, because of course you are a waypoint, a third point is sponsored. We have to cross that waypoint, but we can do it in other kind of waypoints. I think it's an advantage between us and X-Alps, because they have more, I don't know, less flexibility with this kind of aspects, probably. Yeah. This is a big change we are going to implement this year.
Mm-hmm.
Christoph, you have an idea, yeah?
Yeah, sounds quite interesting.
Yeah, the idea is if the weather is going to be really, really bad, as we don't like a hike race, just hike race, we could change slightly the route, or slightly, not slightly, or maybe remove or add a route waypoint. So when we will publish the route, there will be a gap between two turn points, and who knows what kind of turn points you could find between them. That's the idea.
No one can train for a month now.
Let's see if it works or not. Who knows? Probably, but we have to improve the race. I think we have to try to make changes to improve the race and to make it better. I think it could be a way.
Yeah, quite good idea.
Thanks. And what about the team flying?
Yeah.
How to check it? Hey,
Yeah,
Christoph?
that's quite. Yeah, that's super hard to check it.
Yes.
I think we were talking about quite
Yeah.
quite a long time already. And
I'm joking
yeah,
because
yeah. No,
Christoph and I have been talking about this many times, and it's really difficult to check. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, you can't really for sure say that it is this team's person. No, they can say the guy joined with us.
Yeah, I don't know if all the public know what the team flying means. Probably Alok, you could explain it. What
Yeah. So a lot of it is for the public. A lot of times pilots from across the maybe not the European pilots, the other pilots who don't have that big a support group, they have raised this concern that the local pilots have big teams flying along with them and helping them in this adventure race, which is more supposed to be a solo flying expedition. Now, this is a disadvantage for some teams which cannot really afford to have big enough teams. And people have been trying to find out a way. The race directors like Christoph and Inigo have been trying to find out ways into how this can be minimized. And like they said, at the moment there is no best way to deal with it. If someone has ideas, why not? That can be discussed here as well. But yeah, that's the background behind it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
Christoph.
and you just have to ask the athletes to play a fair game, and
Yeah.
that's the only way how it's working. And again, we are on the athlete side, so you need to have athletes with the right mindset thing, in which you can trust and who will play a fair game.
Yeah, I think a lot of such factors go because you have put a lot of onus on the athletes, on responsible athletes, with a lot of rules that the athletes should. You assume that the athletes are following everything with their conscious, with the right conscious.
Yeah.
So, and it can be added as one of the things as well. Yeah.
As Christoph said, we mainly trust on athletes. Yeah, we have to, because there are many ways to cheat, to make tricks in the race, but I think we trust on them.
Yeah. And yeah, for X-Alps, we have, beside of the athletes, which are really the main point on it, we have so many eyes watching the athletes also live, not only in the live tracking, but yeah, there's so many people knowing X-Alps and really having a live look on the athletes passing by, that maybe this is also one point where the athletes say, "Oh, I'm watched by somebody, so I cannot cheat." But as I said before, much more important is the athlete. It's that they are really doing it out of joy and playing a fair game and not trying to play any dirty tricks there.
Yeah. Right. Because as long as if there is something going wrong in the mind, of course, human mind is limitless. Now, of course, people will find some ways to cheat around it. So it has to be put on athletes like all other rules that we have, and just hope that things are going all right with them. But I think we have been very lucky with our pilot community. We don't have such athletes in the hike and fly race arena. So that's a good thing. I have one question coming in, asking, and I think this will go more to Christoph. Any chance of increasing participant numbers in the coming years?
No, at the moment not. So at the moment we are really, yeah, I think normally it's 30 athletes, and we were increasing up to 32 with these 2 wildcard athletes, but that's the maximum at the moment.
And why is that? There's a limit to the number that you have?
Yeah, Inigo said it before. It's much easier if you don't have so many athletes or so many teams taking part. Yeah, it's getting too complicated, everything.
Yeah, I think Inigo last edition he even invited 40 teams.
Yeah, in this edition 45, but the
Yeah.
problem for me is that we get too many apply,
Yeah.
and we don't like the idea to leave many people out of the race. So that's why we increased in 5 more this edition. But yes, it increases the complication of the race for the organizers too, for the people that follow the race inside the race. I mean, the staff,
Yeah.
the race, and the media, no, the social networks, and you have to work more. But in the other side, we balanced that we need to get people from different places, different countries. That's why we opened a little bit more.
Yeah.
Probably it's a mistake. I don't know yet. We'll see.
I think we are now close to the end of the session, guys. It has been really informative session, both from the pilot's perspective as well as organizational perspective. People from the country will take a lot of inputs from it. One of the things that I would like to mention to everyone, I was speaking to Christoph yesterday about X-Alps mentors coming in, and Christoph said a very simple idea that all these X-Alps athletes, they come to be, and we should connect with them more often. Personally, I know David, Tom Delort, and Uri Koren, all of them, they visited India. They've done their expeditions in India. Kinga, for example, they come, we can always closely collaborate with them, talk to them, learn from their minds, and plan our own route towards X-Alps and X-Pyr. It is always within our limits. No? And thank you very much, everyone, for posting your questions. And I really would like to thank Christoph and Inigo to give all their inputs. Thank you very much, guys. I request everyone to come online and thank Christoph.
Thanks to you too for thinking on us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, thanks for
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alok.
Thanks, Inigo. Thanks, Christoph. Thanks, Alok.
Thanks. Welcome.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christoph.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me